We've been so we're going over the special town meeting articles again, obviously. So we have the updated version from what we voted on Tuesday. There was no other changes, it was just what we voted, correct, Jeff?
Correct. Well, I took out the little number signs and
The little what signs?
the little,
The pound signs.
pound signs, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There was also the change in the verbiage of the article we're going to have to address.
Right, Article 45? Yes. Because you changed it to .53, but our motion was actually to amend it, so we should probably technically make it a motion.
Approve as written, yeah.
As written.
Oh, that's right, it is as amended.
Yeah. So we probably should.
Does it have to be, or why don't we just revoke it?
That's
No, we
fine.
have to reconsider it.
We'd have to
and then
reconsider, and then we'd have to vote.
I can change it to as amended.
Well, the
Oh, no,
problem is,
because-
you already changed it in the language of the
Changed it in
article
the
to
language.
.53, when
Yeah.
it used to be .33. So there's nothing to amend anymore.
So we have to reconsider.
We're very technical, Jeff.
It's a typo. It was a typo.
I'm sure it was a typo, but our motion was, though, to amend.
It is.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah,
So I think for that purpose, we probably should reconsider.
yeah.
And then, did we confirm, so we did confirm that it's a two-thirds vote to purchase? I see that you added that.
Yeah, I reached out to Copeland
Yeah.
and Page, yeah.
Occasionally I am right. So we need a motion to reconsider.
So moved. 45.
45?
A second.
All in favor of reconsidering? Opposed, abstaining? So it's, what do we have, 7 tonight? 2, 3, 4,
Yep.
6, 7. So 601. Now, is there a motion to approve the article as written?
So moved.
A second? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstaining?
Is that an abstain or you voting
5-1-1.
against
Karen
it?
abstained?
About what you guys voted on,
Okay.
so,
Well, she could vote, but it's
you.
confusing.
yeah, I'm just gonna wait.
Okay.
5-1-1.
So it can read now that the
Yes.
town vote to approve the article is written
So basically, it's fine
5-1-1.
as you have it now, yes.
Yeah.
And the vote is fine.
Well, we have an abstention.
It changed.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes, the
one
vote
abstention.
changed, though. It's 5-1-1 now.
Yeah.
All right, fabulous.
Sorry. Okay. We did 46.
First one that's a hold is 47.
7. Yes. And this is the one, the people from Habitat are here and someone from Housing Partnership. So if you want to come up so we can ask you questions, maybe identify yourselves too, for the record. If you have enough.
Thank you. It's like I get sets of minutes everywhere.
He just doesn't want to give it to you.
I know, he really doesn't. Do you have enough? We can share if you don't have enough.
Thank you.
So before us is the article is to appropriate $201,756 from the Community Preservation Fund Housing Fund balance for the construction of a single-family house on 226 Cedar Street and to acquire a permanent restriction for affordable housing. So if you'd like to introduce yourself, starting with you, Jean.
Jean Buba, town planner.
Dave Neal, representative of Housing Partnership.
Debbie Habitat Planner.
Thank you. So questions? We had a lot the other night.
Well, I think the first part is, the other night, we were told it doesn't even get close to making the town's percentage of affordable housing? Where does it actually put us? Since you're here, you might actually have numbers.
One unit among numerous that we have to engage with. Part of the problem in Sturbridge is the lack of available perkable land. There was another lot that was almost right next to this, and we weren't able to get a perk on it, but we were on this.
I think I'm talking more in general, where are we as a town in relation to our 10% limit?
Sure, go ahead.
Might want to give her the microphone.
We're at 5.56% affordable housing on our subsidized housing inventory.
Okay.
So this adds 1 unit to that.
Which is like a 0.1% move, or?
Very incremental move, yes.
And based on the next census, it'll probably go up as far as what we need.
What do you mean it will go up? We'll need more?
Yes.
Yes, we will.
So the percentage will go down?
No.
Higher percentage.
Yeah, there'll be more to
Oh, the percentage that we need is,
Yep.
okay.
house. One of the things here, Southbridge would be an ideal community for us because it's got so many multifamily units. I would just go and buy multifamily units everywhere. And the prices in Southbridge aren't all that bad. Sturbridge, the pricing is a lot more challenging. And there are not any, or very few units in Sturbridge. Not much multiple housing at all that is available. And you've got some which are nice, but they're not classified as affordable. As a matter of fact, we'd be behind the 8 ball if it weren't for the project that's coming up on Route 131.
I think that was a question that came up the other night, too, is why aren't we pursuing more multifamily options? It seems everyone that's come up in the last few times we've decided to fund housing projects have been single-family houses.
Wish we had the area. We don't. I mean, we don't have enough room. We've got, go ahead.
You couldn't,
We don't really have the town-owned parcels, so this parcel came to us through tax taking, so it's large enough for a single-family home. That's what it's zoned for, that's how large it is. We don't really have any town-owned land that is suitable for multifamily housing, where you could fit a significant amount. And that's kind of basically the bottom line of it.
how about some of the land we purchased through the CPA funds?
You can't use open space for housing. Most of them have a conservation restriction. You can't even build a building on them, never mind housing. So if the Five Leaves project at 152 Main Street is developed, that will put us very close to the 10%. It's 97 units of rental housing, 25% affordable. However, in a rental project, all of the units are counted towards our SHI. So that will bring us very close. That project's been on hold for some time now. So it's really difficult for a community of this size to be able to meet the 10%. I mean, 5.56 sounds pretty low, but there's communities that are even lower than that.
There's also another provision of what we've got. We've got an annual town meeting coming up, and that is that we can offer repair, maintenance, and upgrade facilities to people who are already in their homes. That you want to do close to an annual town meeting in order to get the funding, because that's what's necessary. But that's a component I think we'll pursue at this point in time, just because we've got, what is it, June town meeting coming up? Yep, so that'll be enough time to make it cooperative with the timeframes that we've been looking for eligible people. So that's another component of what we're doing.
Estimate that impact on our goal of 10% versus the 5.5 we're at now. How much of an impact might that have?
What's that?
What you're talking about, the upgrades and the different things you're going to...
Has no impact whatsoever, but it has a...
Well, it has value, I understand that.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So the money can be for them too. I would have Debbie Howe who's here tonight from Habitat for Humanity to perhaps address the board as well.
Were there, I don't know how many of you reviewed the RFP, if you have any specific questions around the project. I can give you sort of an overview of the way Habitat works and has worked with several other towns that we've been working with, specifically with CPA funds. So we've developed some relatively close partnerships. Northborough is one of the towns we are working with very closely. We've worked with Holliston as well very closely with their housing trusts and their CPA funds. And the way that it works is when the town identifies a parcel such as this, we will respond to an RFP, and if we are the winner of that RFP, come in to do the development. We work very closely then with the housing partnership or housing trust in town throughout the process. We manage the entire process of the DHCD LIP application to make sure that the unit does get counted on the inventory. We work with them through the marketing and lottery plan, ensuring that all that documentation is completed according to their requirements, and then the lottery is executed according to their requirements for the family selection portion. Then we go in to build the home. The homeowner partners with Habitat and puts in 400 to 500 hours of what we call sweat equity, of actual building hours on their own home, which helps them both to understand the mystery behind the walls, so understand how that home comes together, but also develops a strong community tie. Because one of the goals for successful Habitat homeowners is that they are involved within their community. So being out there with the volunteers as the home is being built really does develop those relationships, which is great long-term with the family. We then hold the mortgage for the 30 years that the homeowner is in the home. And therefore, we are their first point of contact. So when life events happen, if they do run into situations which are making it a challenge for them, we work with them as opposed to a standard sort of bank process that would come in and sort of do an aggressive foreclosure. We try to partner with our families, work through their issues, provide forbearance when possible, and really work to help them to be successful long-term. During the duration of the time that they are in that home, for that 30-year mortgage, we are in partnership with the town of Sturbridge and with DHCD. But the three entities are all included as the monitoring agent to ensure that we are meeting the requirements, which means that the family who is in the low-income bracket remains as primary residents within that home. It doesn't get rented out and they move someplace else, that sort of thing. So we are active in that part of the process as well. Trying to think if there's any other questions that have come through that I can help to explain more about how this works.
Well, I'll just put in context a bit. A lot of discussion during our last meeting centered on this is going to be a quarter of what's in the fund for the town, and I think I can speak for myself. We're interested in helping, providing this sort of housing. I know it makes a big difference for this one family, but if it's a quarter of our budget and we could do a project like this and make 4 homes, is that really an effective use of our funds? And I was hoping for somebody to sort of advocate for and make the case that this actually is worth doing and put it into some perspective for us. That would help me out. And if you could also explain how the 50% funding from the town was decided, and where that number, how was that generated?
So it's generated based on our relationships with the other towns that we've been working with CPA funds. There is a range of investment that they make, but it is typically in that the 50% range. Northborough actually, when they present a project, they present it like that. They say, okay, so here's the parcel, and we would look to provide 50% of your funding, put together a budget, and come back to us so that we can talk about whether that's feasible for us at this point. I think that the impact that a project like this makes is that because of the deed rider that goes on the home, it does stay in that affordable housing inventory in perpetuity. So it's not, it is the one family who's moving in now, but it is also that property forever. which so it, it makes it as part of the long-term investment for the town in affordable housing. And so, as additional homes are added to that, they stay affordable forever, which I'm not sure is the same with the rental properties. I don't know if those stay in perpetuity.
Not all of them.
I think, and some of the older properties, that wasn't a requirement. So, even within DHCD guidelines, that's not something that they've always had. So we have communities. So our affiliate covers 42 cities and towns. And we have some communities where their housing that they had invested in 20, 30 years ago is rolling off of that affordability, so it's now available at market rate. And so that's one of the big changes with what's going on and with the partnership that we have with DHCD now.
This question for Jean. Jean, the percentage, that 10% of affordable housing, is that how we approach that percent? Is that based on the value of the property in question, or is that based on the number of people that are served by that particular domicile?
So the, excuse me, the 10% is 10% of your housing units that you have, your year-round housing
It's
units.
based on the number of individual
Year-round housing
structures,
units,
so to speak.
correct.
Okay. I wasn't
Yeah.
sure what that was.
One of the things that I passed around, which I thought was kind of breathtaking, was the estimated budget summary for the project. And in essence, the way I look at it is we're buying a single-family house for $202,000, which is far within. These estimates here are well, that's what they are, they're estimates. Putting in site preparation and landscaping, that was a bit tough for me. Foundation closed shell, that's reasonable. Interior sheetrock trim and millwork, that's reasonable too, closing the inside of the house. But all of these amount to a figure of $403,000. And a lot of you guys would probably say, if I'm building a 1,500 square foot house, how am I paying $403,000?
Well, you're not counting the value of the land in this estimate.
Oh, that's
either.
correct.
Yeah, so it's more than, you're not getting a single-family house for $210,000. It's whatever that value on the open market is, plus the $210,000 you're throwing in.
So the budget that was created is based on the same house plan. We use a standard plan in many of our builds, customized as needed for the site, but is a relatively consistent house plan. We've just built it twice in Holliston, and both of those were actually included within the RFP. One, the total project cost was about $315,000, and the other was about $330,000. With both of those, the difference between those projects and this one are really about, they're site-specific. So this site has additional work in the site clearing because of the number of trees on site and the work that will be involved with that. The estimate for the septic unit in this site is increased because of the slow perk test results. The estimate that we put in for the well was higher because we are anticipating needing to dig a deeper well. So all of those things were taken into consideration, but also compared against the actual build costs that we had for two of the same type of house just completed.
In the other night, we were kind of given an example of how it works, but maybe you can confirm how what the pricing would be for the family, because I guess the maximum income is $57,000, so on the math, it puts the price of the home on, what I guess would be their mortgage, at like $270,000?
No. So the maximum, I believe the estimated maximum from DHCD on this, on a family of 4 in Worcester County, I believe is $188,000 is the maximum available resale price, and that would be for a family who's making $75,000, just over $75,000, which is outside of Habitat's range. So on somebody who's within Habitat's range, which is 30 to 60% of AMI, the home would be much more in the $150,000 range, or in the $125,000 to $150,000 range for the maximum sale price. It is based on, once we have a home partner family selected, 30% of their annual income would go to cover the cost of the mortgage, plus the taxes, plus the insurance. So those three things added together, no more than 30% of their income would go toward that, and we take that to calculate the sale price of the home.
Okay.
And then how are the taxes calculated on what
It's going to be
value?
under 150,000. That's what it was sold for. Usually we're some percentage below that.
So it says, real estate taxes are typically assessed on the sale value of the home as opposed to the market value of the home, which helps to keep it affordable for the family. The market price, the fair market price for the home, what actually gets captured is the appraised value, and then Habitat subsidizes the difference between the maximum sale price and the appraised value, so that it doesn't negatively impact sales of other homes in the neighborhood. Right? So if Habitat came in and sold a home for $125,000 and all of the neighbors' homes are $450,000, that's going to drive their house down, which does not make for good neighbors. So the way that we work around that is the booked sale value of the home is that fair market value, and then Habitat holds a subsidy for the duration of the mortgage, and it's a soft second that gets forgiven over the course of the mortgage, so that by the time the mortgage is paid off, that soft second has gone away as well. Does that make sense?
But what about when it's sold, say after 10 years, these people are moving on,
Yep.
and it still has to be an affordable house? How do you set the sales price at that point?
DHCD has a formula which goes into the deed rider, and essentially it's a proportionate rate. So the same proportionate discount that the current family received, the next family will receive. So the HUD income rates increase over time, and so in order to ensure that the new family is still getting an affordable home, but the existing family gets both the equity and the slight increase of the HUD income rates. So it's proportional, and it's based on the next family coming in. I don't know if I explained that well at all. I'm much better with a whiteboard to draw that one out. But,
Does the selling family have to pay back a portion of the soft second if they haven't stayed there for the duration of the forgiveness period?
only if they would try to sell it at market rate, which actually would be not allowed by DHCD. So the next family then assumes that soft second.
So in the, excuse me, in the event of a default, who holds title to the property?
In the event of default, Habitat has right of first refusal.
They have the first mortgage.
Could you describe a bit of the eligibility requirements for the recipient family, or, I really don't have much background on it, and I'm just curious, are these families that would otherwise be unable to move into an apartment, or?
So very, very often, the mortgage for a Habitat home is less than rent, especially in Massachusetts at this point. So the requirements are threefold. There has to be the need, which is based on, their current situation, both financially, family size, dangerous surroundings. So, their willingness to partner, which means, coming to meetings. They go through financial training and budget training, and participate in the build of their home, to, be really a community partner, and ability to pay. So they must be making between 30 and 60% of the area median income and be able to demonstrate the ability to pay this mortgage over the 30 years.
And that's for a family income of $75,000. So if it's a dual,
That was
75,000 is 80% of AMI. So Habitat's range is 30 to 60% of AMI.
okay. So
I believe is 25.5 to 56.8.
for a family of four.
For a family of four.
It doesn't matter if it's a single or dual income?
Doesn't matter, it's household income.
It's household income.
One of the things I'd like to do would be to get a special permit on allowable land for a two-family. That's my next, I think our next goal.
So, and if we use this as a quarter of what we have put aside,
This is a quarter.
is that, what's the impact on going forward? Is there enough funds for future projects if we're using a quarter on a single family?
I mean, future projects, yes, but it's over, I think it's $880,000. So, I mean, it's significant. And last time, when was the last time we built a house? Is that 2007?
2007.
2007.
There was some comments made, though, in the last meeting, though, that there may be some of these funds sought for the Five Leaves project you're talking about, where we get credit for 90 units, and how much money would they need?
Who, the Five Leaves? They wouldn't require any money. What they've done is they've designated certain units to be affordable, and because there are units, there could be 1, could be 10, it's all counted towards the town's inventory. Does that answer your question?
No, there was some indication the other night that they might be seeking some funds from, I assumed it was from CPC.
See, yeah.
Those are separate conversations.
Ah,
But it does factor into whether or not we consider spending 25%.
As I said the other night, the conversations I've had with Five Leaves, this would not impact the outcome.
So Gene, this may be an unfair question to ask you off the top of your head, but along the lines in town where we have water and sewer available, which is Main Street, and not including town-owned property, but do you know what the availability is of building space, building lots along those routes right now? Because it would seem to me that if you eliminate the cost for water and sewer and all the preparation of the site, if we had lots that were readily available to town utilities, it would dramatically lower the cost to the extent that you could afford to buy the land, pay cash for the land, and still come out lower than.
Well, that's an unfair question I cannot answer. So I'd have to peruse the real estate listings to get a sense of what's available. There's not a tremendous amount of land left with public water and public sewer. If we look at, most of what we have available, it's been in some of the newer subdivisions, which are just about built out right now.
So Ed, if we bought a bunch of 2 and 3 family houses in Southbridge and we took care of those, would we get credit for that, or does it have to be inside our
Matter of fact, there is a piece of property that I've been looking at and actually writing the homeowners, that is on Fairview Park Road. So I'd be looking at that. It would end up being a little over 2 acres. So I would see that as consistent with maybe a 2-family.
There's no sewer there, is there?
I believe it is.
I think that is.
I thought there was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought something got held up there because there wasn't.
Nope.
Larry has a question?
Would you please spell out any overall plan you have into which fit this project and the one referred to by Ed a moment ago as the next goal? Or if there is no overall plan, is the approach basically to be alert for opportunities as they may come along, making it into a one-off sort of situation? What is your scaffolding, so to speak, for getting to 10%?
Go ahead. I'll fill in.
So we're currently updating our housing needs assessment right now, and we're hoping to prepare that as a housing production plan that will be approved by DHCD. That plan will be a roadmap of how we're going to create a certain number of affordable units each year. We did try this several years back, but we would have had to create 16 affordable units per year. So we didn't pursue approval from DHCD. However, the plan should provide us with a toolbox of measures that we can take to incrementally get to the 10%. If something like 5 Leaves isn't built with a large number of units, we'll be clawing to get to 10% for probably the rest of our lives with incremental approaches. And that's really the best that a community can do. So to go, the housing partnership hasn't talked about going out and purchasing land. We've looked at kind of the low-hanging fruit of what do we have available for town land. We approached the Board of Selectmen last year. We asked that they retain this one lot or actually 2 lots for affordable housing purposes, and that was approved at last year's town meeting. So we put out an RFP to try to come up with a reasonable proposal to develop that one parcel that we have at our disposal at this time. To tell you that we have a grand plan for, what our next project's going to be, we really don't. The housing plan will kind of inform what we do going forward, and we will keep our eyes out for other opportunities. And I'm not aware of 5 Leaves requesting any funding, maybe to offset their sewer connections or something like that, but, it's certainly something the Housing Partnership would be willing to work with them as well. The Housing Partnership's been really a big supporter of the 5 Leaves project.
Along the way, have you encountered a loggerhead situation in which the very same town of Sturbridge, for other purposes, is eyeing land that you would like to land on, or from the private sector, use of land, presuming zoning, that would bring in many good jobs? And so now, in such a situation, what's the better of the two? Roof over your head or a paycheck, so to speak, if that doesn't oversimplify it. But has that sort of scenario come up as you've been on the watch?
Not yet, because we honestly have not looked at buying private land. We've really looked at, one of our goals in our current housing plan was to go through all of the town-owned land to see if we had any suitable sites for housing. So that's what led us here tonight. This was the one parcel that was deemed suitable.
Oh, thank you. Looking at the whole town as to buildable land for any purpose, given the zoning, what percentage of the unbuilt land that is buildable, what remains in this town?
I really couldn't tell you because buildable is kind of a loaded statement. So
I'm sorry, sure. From a construction technology standpoint, you don't have to take a nuclear weapon to get rid of, subsurface. In that sense,
I really couldn't give you off the top of my head percentages. I could run some numbers and, email back information on what we have available for land in what zones, but it would take a lot more analysis to figure out how much of that is actually developable.
well, thank you, but since you don't happen to walk around with that information, and I know the press of other responsibilities would leave this at, sometime I hope I bump into you and we can talk about that particular thing then. All right, well, thank you.
One of the things that I've done, because I love using municipal land, is early on, I got a list of all the tax-payable properties that the town of Sturbridge has. We looked at each single one as to what the availability would be as far as the access, the size of the lot, and came up with a number of potentials.
But if I understand what has also been said, those potentials would not be a component of an overall plan.
No, because we're waiting for the CMRPC report to come out, and I think they'll give us an overall plan. You actually have to do one of these every 10 years, one of these reports, and it's been a little while since one had been done before. So I didn't think that building a single family somewhere was going to upset what we may get from CMRPC. in their report, and we wanted to act fast.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up question then. Larry's dealing with buildable. What about already built? Could town parcels that contain existing structures be repurposed to meet the goal?
Such as, like, a town building that we're not using or something?
Correct.
Potentially.
I think that has been done. If you look at the
They've done it
Community
in-
Preservation Organization website.
It's been done in Webster.
I think it's been
Yeah.
done in some.
And I think they did it in Spencer as well, the old school building on Main Street there.
Right.
So,
Is that up for consideration? As I don't know.
not aware we had any vacant buildings to deal with.
It may come up
It might.
sooner or later.
It might be.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's right. It's the Fiskdale Fire Station.
Just to be clear, if this were to be approved, do you have any concerns about this taking away from available funds that might have anything to do with projects you're planning for the future?
I think it's a reasonable drop in the bucket, to be honest with you, where we need multiple in order to meet the 10%. But I think it's a reasonable fee. Like I said, the last house in 2007 cost $125,000. And for this day and age, I don't think that 201, which is our cost, plus the lot, is all that bad.
Understand, I'm not questioning whether or not the estimate is fair, but just from my perspective, should we be holding the funds in reserve for an opportunity that may come along to help more families and get us over the top to meet the requirement? But the sense I'm getting is we could do 20 of these projects and still not meet our goal, because this type of dwelling is not going to get us there, and the funds really aren't going to be adequate to do that. It's going to take some other project to meet that goal. So I'm sort of kind of readjusting the purpose of this fund may be for not just to hit a number, because it's not feasible if this is the main way to do it. So rather to consider this sort of a humanitarian effort that we've already allocated money for this, and to reframe it that way, because it doesn't seem like this is going to get us that 10%, no matter how you slice it.
And I do think that, and you all know better than I, but I thought that the CPC funds for housing could also be used for things like rehab, which isn't going to get you to part of your goal at all. Is that correct?
Exactly correct.
So if you look at it in that framework,
Do you mean,
you're still helping people who perhaps can't, say the elderly or seniors who can't fix their house up, but they want to stay in their house. They don't have the income or the.
okay.
And I don't think that adds to the affordable housing at all, but it is something that is allowed, correct? So from that standpoint, I don't think all these funds necessarily have to go towards that rather elusive affordable housing.
That's kind of what I was thinking. We don't get the funds back into free cash at the end of the year. The town's already decided we want this money for this purpose in general.
Well, and remember, the 10% of the CPC funds each year do have to go into that housing, so it's not a static number. It does increase, or does get added to. And we can use the undesignated fund, actually, to supplement if the town so chose.
Is there a mechanism for homeowners to put the same type of deed restriction that you have, this is going to be used for affordable housing on their property going forward for some type of tax benefit or something on outlines?
Well, they do something very similar, say, with community development block grants. So if you rehab a person's home, then there's a deed restriction placed on that home until that lien is paid off. So a lot of times you see that with community development block grant
I don't think you can
programs.
sell your house to somebody and decide that you're going to deed it with a restriction to be in affordable housing, which I think is what you're asking.
Yeah, I'm
Right,
like,
because the lien would be paid off during the course of
Yeah.
the sale. So it's not in perpetuity. So as, you know, as Debbie mentioned, there's certain programs where, you know, it's in perpetuity. But Autumn Ridge is a good example. I just finished the subsidized housing inventory today, which is done every 2 years. In Autumn Ridge, I noticed today that those units, the affordability restriction expires in 2024. So, you know, that's Heritage Green. That was a similar one. There was 126 units, and the Housing Partnership worked with them to try to get them to keep them affordable. And they actually did do new financing and renovations, and there's a new restriction on there so that they stay affordable. So it's things like that that the Housing Partnership always has to work towards so that we don't lose the stock that we have.
If I understand the numbers, it would seem that success hinges on private philanthropy of a little more than $200,000. Foundations and corporate donations at something over, I'll call 121,000. Do you have soundings that indicate that those are achievable numbers? What if the corporation, the foundations, come in at a grand total of 17,000, not 121, hypothetically? So what happens to the project if there is a significant shortfall? And to avert that, what is the coherent plan to compete with others who have, in their view, more worthwhile reasons to spend the money that can only be spent each dollar one time?
I would hand this off to Deborah.
So actually, a portion of the rationale for asking for 50% of this project through CPA funds is because of the restricted number of foundations and corporations in the western portion of Worcester County. When we build in Middlesex, there is a much larger corporate base that we draw from. And it's easier to do fundraising and do foundation requests in that area than it is in this portion of the state. But we do have some corporations and some foundations that specifically support Worcester County, and we have a history of successful grant receipt through those corporations. We do have other programs as well, so we have coming up soon, Women Build, which is a large fundraising event, and it's individual based, where teams come out to build for a day at a time, and it's a large fundraising event. We have an annual gala fundraising event. That's our largest signature event. But we also have 2 Restore retail locations, which help to provide sustainable ongoing funding for our organization. And those we receive donations from individuals and corporations of new and used furniture and home building supplies. It's open to the public, and those sales, the proceeds from those sales, help to fund our programs moving forward as well. So we have other sources that we can draw on. It just may take a longer period of time to complete the build. However, our current pace of building is consistent with the estimates that we put into this. So we feel relatively confident that we'll be able to meet the goals that we put together here.
Would placing a question mark over the private sourcing be prudent, or to what degree would you say that the project and the sponsors can be confident that the number can be made in a period of time, well, in our lifetime, in reference to what Jean spoke of earlier?
So we have, within the past 6 years, not had to stop build on a project for lack of funds. So, prior prior to that time, before we had gone through the large growth with the development of the Restore in Worcester, we would build to a certain point and pause, and then build and pause as funds were needed for a home. Bringing in the Restore as a sustainable source of funding really did solve that gap for us, so that we have not had to, we continue to fundraise, we aggressively fundraise throughout the course of a project. And the goal is, by the completion of the project, we have covered 100% of the funds through foundations and grants that are specific to that project. However, if we don't have funds that were specifically restricted to that project, we do have the other unrestricted funds that we get through sources such as the Restore to help cover the cost of the home.
Well, let's see, we're at 5.56%, and the idea is to get eventually to 10%. To do the balance, percentage balance, does that mean that the same fundraising sources would be approached again and again? Or is there an attempt to widen the base?
It's a constant process of widening the base and it's spreading awareness. So while everyone that I've spoken to over the course of the past several years knows someone who has actively engaged with Habitat. Everyone knows someone who has swung a hammer at some point. So brand awareness is very well known. However, the awareness that we are in Massachusetts building in communities here is something that is constantly growing. We are always spreading that awareness. And we do that through a variety of methods, including mailings and regular advertising, but also newspaper articles and events such as Women Build to really continue to spread the awareness. But as the affordability of housing in Massachusetts has hit crisis levels and become a topic of regular conversation for all of our politicians, it is something where the awareness is spreading much faster at this point, and we are seeing a higher level of engagement because of that.
Then there's, I suppose, a couple of things to consider. A lot more people are giving very small amounts of money, not that that's itself a bad thing, but you've also indicated that this part of the state does not have what Middlesex County has.
That's
So
true.
does that really point eventually to going back to many of the same major sources?
We go back to many of the same major sources annually, and we receive grants from many of those major sources on an annual repeat basis.
And would you say there is an expectation on their part that they will be revisited by you as time goes by?
I think so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other questions? Ready to vote then? Someone like to make a motion on Article 47?
I'll motion that the town recommend Article 47 as written.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
To
To approve. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? 502.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. No, Jean, you'll have to stay, Jean.
I have to stay, yes. I just have to switch folders.
You have to switch hats. Let's see, we did Article 48.
The next one would be 50.
50, we voted no action.
That's right. So 51.
51, the public safety.
Can I ask a question just about 50 to Jeff then?
Sure.
So at this point in time, that's still in your mind a placeholder?
Yeah, well, it is because everybody's waiting for an appraisal.
And when do you think you'll have the appraisal? Will it be before January 27th?
I hope.
Because I was going to make a motion to take no action.
I hope sooner, but we'll see.
Understand why you-
I lost a few days.
I didn't want to vote
In that
against it,
process.
'cause I don't want to be the first for Christmas.
So we perhaps might have a meeting before the meeting.
Yeah, well, I would hope so.
Yeah. All right, so Article 51, the air conditioning unit at the public safety complex.
I went back and I visited with the facilities manager. The $78,000 is a worst-case scenario. The unit does do heat and cooling. The cooling coil is shot. These are estimates that the fire chief has been gathering over time. Once Robin was hired, she stepped in and started doing this. We're going to have to bid this project. So what we're asking for is a worst case if we have to replace the whole unit. We've gotten other quotes to replace the unit that are lower, but we are going to have to bid this, and we want to see what kind of, it's a 10-year-old unit. We want to make sure that both the heating and cooling are efficient and going to work, even with a new coil. So we would ask for worst-case scenario
So
funding.
this is a roof, it's a split unit, is the furnace on the roof, or is the furnace somewhere else? It's an oil fire, if it's HVAC,
Jim, I don't
then it's
know,
oil
I just know this unit is heating and cooling the majority of the building, and we're looking to make sure that we only have to do this once.
Well, my opinion, I think we ought to get an appraisal to find out if it's just the cooling unit, if it needs a new,
And we will, but we need to get the funding in place so we can bid this to have the cooling in place for the summertime. If we wait for the annual,
Yeah.
we won't have any cooling in the building in the summertime.
So we're gonna replace a unit that's got about 8 years left on its life.
We don't know that. All we know is we're asking for the worst-case scenario funding, so we
So
don't
there's an
have,
opportunity here that we may not replace it, we may repair the existing unit?
it depends on the severity of the problem and when we bid this, what can be done.
So can,
I wish we had more time between now to
Wish we
figure
did
it
too,
out, but
because
we
if you're gonna
don't.
bid it, then the person who's gonna bid on it is gonna bid to replace it, because it's in their best interest for you to spend the money for them to replace it, not to fix it. That's just my
I
feeling,
know, as we
Jeff.
went through last summer, we had air conditioning in the building and it was
Yeah,
horrendous.
well,
I
Been a lot of problems at
I
that
guess I'll
building.
ask the question to you. I mean, the article states rooftop air conditioning unit. It doesn't say anything about heating.
I'm shocked that it's, because it didn't say anything about HVAC, it just said
Right, so, I
RTU,
mean,
which is a rooftop
That's,
cooling.
that's a problem in my construct, so we can fix that if you would like.
I kinda,
Yeah, I think it should be.
Yeah, I mean, that's not
Then
exactly.
you're not giving, I mean, I would wonder if the moderator would allow,
That's kind of where I'm going. Do you?
because he sometimes gets very strict about,
Yeah,
scope of the
because
article.
someone may not come for air
was
conditioning,
there
that's his
his-
argument, but they would come if it's heating and air conditioning.
he would say that, probably, exactly.
So, yeah, we would want to probably change that to, or we can just fix the air conditioning, and if the heat goes, we'll come back.
$78,000. So I keep likening this to the situation that we had at the library a couple of years ago. Because they had the air conditioning or HVAC or
Whatever it was.
whatever it was, and it was a lot of money, and plus it's, I think it's a different unit, propane or something, I
Yeah,
don't
it's
know.
gas
but
fired.
They actually had someone come in
they have propane?
and
Yes.
look at
Yeah,
it and
propane.
do,
Or at least
it
part of
wasn't,
the building is.
it wasn't our facilities person. It was actually the company who was doing they actually came in and gave an estimate, well, you can do this,
I
you can
have,
do this, you can do this,
I have those.
for the library. So why can't you do the same thing for this and find out exactly? Because we were presented, this is what they said, this is what we've decided to do, this is how much money we need. That's not what's going on
In the
here.
time frame we've had to work on this, we've gotten worst-case scenario just to get to this point, so we can get the funding in the warrant, so we can get this done in the springtime before the heat sets in. Now, we'll have more of an opportunity to vet what's wrong with this thing, but for right now, we needed to get a number in to the board.
So, I appreciate that, I do. But the annual town meeting's the beginning of June. You can work pretty, you can hustle to get it done if the town will vote for it. If you do.
In
your-
June?
Why wouldn't you if you?
Because you won't have an air conditioner in a majority of the building in July.
The year doesn't begin with the annual town
I
meeting.
understand that, July, okay, but I'm still, is it gonna be so hot that we can't put up with maybe a week with fans? I mean, I'm just, you know, I don't mean to be a jerk here, but...
I'm not going to answer that. I'm really
But
not.
Jeff, the thing is, why rush to get it in if you don't know the information?
Well, all we're doing is rushing to get a number approved so we can do the right thing. And the right thing is to make sure that the people that work in our buildings and the technology we pay thousands of dollars for is protected adequately, and they can work comfortably in a dispatch center, or in a holding cell, or in their own offices, or in the Sally Port, or wherever else they need to
I
work.
get all that.
Okay.
I get all that. It's just a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and it's unfortunate that a unit it's less than 10 years old doesn't work.
But that's the other thing. I mean, if these units go for 15 or 20 years, and this is less than 10 years, that,
I agree. I don't know why. All I know is it doesn't work, and it's going to cost some amount of money to fix it. And what we're asking for is the worst-case scenario. That way, we don't have to stop a project and then wait till June or July to get this fixed.
And what I'm saying is you're coming to us with two amounts to repair or replace, and somebody with professional expertise should be able to tell us categorically, without a doubt, whether it needs to be replaced or it couldn't be repaired. We should be able to get an answer to that question from a qualified professional. And if we can't, then we haven't talked to a qualified professional. Nothing, I'm just saying, Jeff, we should be able to get an answer to that question from someone who knows what they're doing.
I understand.
And right now, it's, well, it could be this or it could be this. You know, so we have to decide, we have to make a decision based on what it could be, but we don't have an opinion from someone who's a qualified professional who can tell us with a high degree of certainty what it actually is and what's required. That's all because we're spending the town's money and that's our job.
Well, it's my job,
Do the right
too.
thing. And if
At
it was
the end
my
of the
house,
day, I'm gonna be held
if it was
accountable
my
for it,
house,
too.
If it was my house, I'd be having someone come in and tell me, what are my options?
And we'll have
what's your degree of
opportunities,
certainty?
we'll have opportunities to do that, but right now, I need a number to put on a warrant so I can have
So you're
funding
just
so I
saying
can do
amount.
the project.
So what I'm saying is that
Unless
the
you wanna-
warrant article is going to be, that we need an article that says, we want an article to approve not to exceed a certain amount to either repair or replace.
There you go.
Whatever's qualified. So it's going to be open to an option to repair or replace with a threshold of a maximum.
Whatever works for the board.
Well, I think
But
that's the most.
You also have the option, because this seems to be unexpected, to come to us for the reserve fund transfer for the funds when you have the answers.
Well, it's not unexpected, because we know today we got to do this. It's shot, it doesn't work, it's broken, it doesn't produce any cool air. So it's not unexpected.
So when you say $78,000, that's not just the price of the unit. I assume that includes some labor? And is
That's
this one of those?
labor, that's
Oh, it'd have
everything,
to-
and that's
They would
just
have
one
everything.
of,
It'd have to be rigged. They'd have to bring in a crane and rig it, take
Well,
the
that's
oil
everything.
down, put the
That's
new one up.
everything.
You're talking,
It's a
how many?
complicated job.
30
It's not-
tons. It's not something you can,
and this is something, because of the
Stuff in your
cost,
hand.
we're going to have to bid it, we have to pay prevailing wage, we have to do all those
Well,
things. that
where I was
towns
going
do.
is, do we need a project overseer, one of those
We have
positions
one.
too?
It's Robin, she's a licensed architect.
Oh, okay.
She's the project manager in all the work. She did the library. She's working the senior center, putting that back together next week, all those things.
Okay.
And she's been working on this project, but she's not had the ability to do an in-depth dive into this thing to get you what you need. I asked her for a number, that way we could get it done before June and July when the heat hits that building.
And I understand.
So I certainly
because
understand what you're saying. We
Replacement
just ran
parts,
out
you
of
can pull up
time.
there with a rope. If you're going to replace the unit, you have to bring a crane, and this is a major undertaking.
It is, I agree. I've done it before.
I think this goes back to a problem that we have consistently, is to have some faith in the town employees that we have hired to do their job, and to believe that they're going to do it with everybody's best interest in mind. If at the time it comes, she's not going to replace it if she's being told that it needs to be repaired just because the $78,000 is there. She's going to spend the money wisely and do what is recommended. And I think we have to have faith that that's what's going to happen.
But the article calls for replacing, it's specific.
Well, I think we can adjust the
Well, that's
the
what I'm
we
language
could,
in
we
the article.
could make
The
a
language,
motion to amend, so it's,
and include
could say-
heat too,
Yeah.
HVAC.
you could put
You-
up
you-
to the sum of and repair.
No,
replace.
you wouldn't. You'd leave it at 78,000.
I suppose.
Because if they don't spend all of it,
It
it's
goes
going to be
back.
left over. But you could amend it to add the heating portion of it, and you,
And I think you should put in repairs.
yes, replace or repair.
replace.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion along those lines?
I'll make a motion that we approve the article with the amended language, repair or replace.
What
And you
about
want-
the air conditioning?
And you want to,
And what did we say that needs?
Rooftop HVAC, I guess.
oh, to make it HVAC instead of air conditioning, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you put in?
Yeah, they just changed to HVAC.
Okay.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed?
Wow,
That was
Tough.
5-2, right?
I voted for.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
There were
7,
two
yeah, 5-2.
noes.
It was 2 votes, so that was Joni,
Who else
Kevin.
voted no?
Kevin. Okay. Moving on. I don't think we've done any of these zoning, have we?
52? No. Gotta go to the new one.
Okay, we've just not done the zoning. We've done the end one, the 2 or 3 at the end. Okay, so,
Can I ask a question quickly on Article 44? Because we did have one outstanding question on it, even though we acted on it, which is the very first one about the
Yes.
feasibility studies.
Right.
You were going to get us what the 3 estimates were for each of the 3 parcels to do them?
No, I said I'd have that available the night of the town meeting.
You did.
yeah, he did say
Oh,
that.
okay. So you're still planning on
Because I'm trying
doing
to think
that?
of how to put it in the summary box.
Okay.
I really want to.
And again, it's not a third, a third, a third.
I know, I understand that, but it'd be a good idea to,
I'll have that available the night of the town meeting.
Yeah, we'll have to do the,
But also on that point, since you brought it up, Kevin, if you don't mind,
yeah, go ahead.
you mentioned something earlier that struck a chord, and that was, you know, you can't build on conservation land with a conservation restriction, and yet here we are trying to go for the Shepherd parcel for the senior center. And I know it was discussed that you would try to remove that
Yes.
CR, if that's the case. What does that process entail? And why wouldn't you consider it for affordable housing?
Right. So this process would entail, first, I would need to have a project. I would need to convince the Opakam Land Trust that holds the CR to lift it, and that's going to require negotiation. I would need to then go to town meeting and get town meeting to lift it. I would need the State Department of DCR or some state department, whatever, to lift it. Then I would need the legislature to pass a special act to lift it.
So it's a very detailed,
It's a very
long
detailed process.
process.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, what we really need to do is replace the land we take out of conservation easement with other lands to put in. So there's maybe a 1-to-1, maybe a 2-to-1. And that's really what's going to determine whether we're successful or not, is can we take other lands and preserve them and ask to have these released from the CR?
Okay.
So when you look at an affordable housing complex, where we're looking to basically use 3 to 4 acres of an 8.5 acre tract, you're going to need a huge piece out of a conserved parcel, and probably, which is encumbered with environmental areas you don't want to disturb anyway.
Well, I mean, that depends on what they would consider for that
Right.
particular property.
Right.
It just struck me, and I'm not suggesting that you look at Shepherd parcel, to be honest, but it just struck me when you mentioned it.
So Jeff,
Oh, and I also need the Conservation Commission to approve it.
so Jeff,
That would probably be number 1.
we're still waiting for
It'll-
the appraisal, but the potential purchase of 53 Holland Road could be a trade-off in this context. It could be, that could be used
There
in that
are a lot of
trade-off.
possibilities out there.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's all kinds of possibilities out there.
but if we buy it now, it's a done deal, and we can't, it's already in conservation.
Depends on who has care and custody when we purchase it.
So if we were to retain that in a certain context, care and custody, to keep it, so it was.
I would
in play.
recommend from now on that the Board of Selectmen be very strategic on how they purchase land and whose care and custody they put it
Because
under.
if we buy it and we
we could position ourselves so that we could do exactly what you, with the Shepherd parcel, if we could. I'm just trying to be,
Oh, don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of doing that to the Shepherd parcel, by the way.
that's okay. But if we
Just
have
to be
one,
clear.
if we could switch, because we can't, the one we're talking about only has 32 feet of frontage, so we can't do much else with it.
Okay. All right, moving on. Are we ready for Article 52 here?
Thank you for the definitions, by the way, Jean.
So these are on, I'm trying to remember what issues we had
52.
with
Well,
Article
we fixed
52 itself.
amusement and entertainment.
Yeah,
I still have a comma issue, and I know I'm
Oh,
gonna
yes,
pick-
that's right.
when you get down there, like indoor commercial recreation facility, it says may include accessory uses, snack bar, restaurant, retail sales, or related sports. So can only be one of those two. Health or fitness items, can only be one of those two. So if you sell health food, you can't sell gym clothes and other supported facilities. I mean, is that what you really intended, or did you really mean that you wanted all of those as possible options?
I think that was,
All of those is
So you need a comma, because, this is where that state of Maine got in trouble.
that's fine. No problem.
Where does the comma need to go?
After retail sales,
After
Yeah.
retail sales?
You don't even need the or there, retail sales, related sports, health, comma, fitness items, and, yeah, because it's all
In what is it, it's in the indoor?
indoor. But I mean, that's my whole thing about the commas, you want them all, that's what you're trying to do, but you're restricting yourself by not putting the comma.
Such snack bar, restaurant, retail sales, comma.
You don't need the or there if you want to really
Yeah.
get it.
I know, I'm working on it.
No, the or has to come out
yeah, okay.
after the last.
And then you do health, comma, and get rid of that or.
Related sports, health, or fitness items. Don't health or fitness go together
Yes, they
in
do.
general?
Health and fitness.
Why not say and?
You could put
Yeah.
health
And
and
fitness
or
item,
fitness.
yeah.
Or is restrictive.
And or is not.
No, you're right.
Are we saying and/or
Yeah,
or
he's
and?
Just and. Get rid of the R.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Or put a comma and remove the or.
Oh, my God.
I think we need,
But
I think we need a town
It's
grammarian.
options.
I can call somebody. Health and fitness items, comma, and other support facilities.
This is the stuff Kathy looks for. She looks for the loophole there and then pounces.
That's true. Karen, too. Karen, too. Don't just put me.
If you
don't
put
me-
an or, it means one thing. If you put an and, it means another.
Yeah.
If we need that kind of lawyer on an indoor commercial recreation facility, we get bigger problems.
You'd be surprised.
You would be, yes.
Like may and shall. You can't mix those up.
So are we good with the definition part of Article? Well, is that, and it is, Article 52 is definitions.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with 52.
I think that was our only issues with them.
Pretty much.
So then is there a motion to approve it as, now is it as written, Jeff?
Yeah.
You just changed it? Oh,
Oh, I did, wait, there was one thing, too. I'm sorry, I've got 3 sets of things I'm working off right now, because I wrote my questions on the original document.
and I
So,
suppose I should go back.
when it
and look.
comes outdoor, it talks about accessory uses. Now, Charlie tried to answer this the other night, too, but what percentage of the project can make up the accessory use? So can you be 51% the main use and 49% one of the other uses?
It could be, it really would be up to the discretion of the planning board or the zoning enforcement officer, whichever the case may be. But generally, it's the dog wagging the tail, not the tail wagging the dog. So your primary use is generally your larger portion of use.
But the potential is there, is all.
The potential's there for 49%?
Or something.
Sure. Depends.
Can I make a motion to accept as written?
Yes,
Approve as written.
because we rewrote it. Or Jeff just rewrote it.
Is that a
Yes.
motion?
That was a motion, yeah.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Good. Any further discussion? All in favor? 7-0. Good. Okay. Article 53. Now, let's see, we had some notes on that.
Can we consider 53 and 54 somewhat the same, because they kind of correlate to each other? I just,
Vote them as one?
well, no,
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 we have
but
to
I
vote
have
them
a
as-
question that.
Oh, yes,
for the
if
other
you
article
want-
that might relate to
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
if you want to do that, that's fine.
So, we're changing setbacks and all these different measurements, so that would automatically increase the amount of land that's available to be built on.
No, not really. So what you're doing is the thing that you are decreasing is the front setback, but what you are doing is you're deleting the dimensional requirements for the planned unit business development because we're proposing to delete that. So the lot area for a lot in the special use district is currently 1 acre. It's proposed to stay as 1 acre. The front setback now is 100 feet. The right-of-way there is 100 feet. So we're proposing to reduce that to 50 feet to give a more reasonable setback so that on 1 acre of land, you can reasonably develop something. That's really the only dimensional requirement that's proposed to change, other than giving the ability to get a special permit for heights greater than 35 feet, which is consistent with what we've recently done in the Commercial Tourist District and the Village Gateway District. So when the bylaw was written and the 35-foot height limitation was put in, it's my understanding the fire apparatus, that was kind of the extent of what they could reach. And that's no longer the case, so as we work on different sections of the bylaw, we're changing and inserting that new language so that you can go to greater heights. So those are really the only two things that are changing, the front setback and the height. The area is staying the same.
Have there been, once this gets changed, are there any theoretical, hypothetical, proposed, any projects ready to go down there?
No.
With these changes?
No. It's just,
We've had to do a couple by exception, in the past few years, we've had a couple that exceeded the 35 feet.
Yes.
We've approved them, so this simplifies things by.
right. And as far as, land that's available down there, when we started this process, it was kind of in question even what the campground would become. And now, multi-millions of dollars are being invested into that RV park. And since then, the old Hebert Candies has sold. It's the dog place. And so really, we have like 3 key parcels, so maybe a total of 50 or 60 acres that are potentially developable down there, but not contiguous, so you'd never reach the 50 acre that you would need for a planned unit business development. So any chance of developing has to be on a standalone parcel in the special use district, in keeping with that 1 acre requirement, which is the same as what any other commercial district requires, or even our rural residential districts require an acre.
Other comments? I think I still have my comment on 1402, E, on Article 52. Where you put an allowed uses indoor recreational facilities, outdoor recreational facilities, but the definition says indoor commercial recreational facilities. Shouldn't it be an outdoor commercial recreation? Shouldn't that be consistent?
It should. Indoor commercial recreation, yes, so we should fix
So
that.
that's E?
E and F.
E and
F.
F, yeah.
Thank you for catching that.
So just inserting the word commercial.
Yeah, you're just inserting the word
Commercial.
As many sets of eyes as we've had on that, you look
know,
at
it's
something
true.
so much over and over, and you miss it.
And then we did get the explanation on the indoor family amusement center.
And the microbreweries.
And the micro.
So are you going to leave that in there?
I think you said it was in other,
It's in other sections, so it might be kind of redundant, but I just felt that until we modify the other sections with this new term, craft beverage business with tasting room, I just wouldn't want someone to think, oh, well, microbrewery is listed in commercial tourist, but it's not here, so I guess they can't do that. You know what I'm saying? Just for consistency, and while
It's just special permits
special
then?
use.
But you
it's a
also.
special use district. This is just the special use district we're talking about here.
Right, right. So, but don't you always need that? Don't you always need a special permit for these businesses? Even if you were not in the special district?
No, you might need site plan approval. I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, you said it was listed twice. You said it was listed here.
No, what I said, what I'm saying is it's allowed in other zoning districts as microbrewery. This new definition of craft beverage business with tasting room, we don't have anywhere else yet. So my concern, and the boards, I believe, agreed with me, was that if we didn't also bring microbrewery over right now, even though it may be redundant, somebody may look at craft beverage business and say, well, you're not saying microbrewery, so John Smith can't do a microbrewery, because in commercial tourist, you specifically spell out microbrewery. So we thought better to be safe and be redundant and add the word microbrewery. No harm, no foul.
Right, I understand that, but to me, it's more confusing because it's the same thing. It's you say potato, I say potato.
Well, it might be, but until we clean up the other chapters, I think for consistency, it makes sense to have it there.
Is a microbrewery solely a place of manufacture?
No, it also contains a tasting room. So Joni's right, it's absolutely the same thing. But I think until we can clean up those other districts and have all consistent terms, then my preference would be to err on the side of caution and include it.
Why, sorry.
Thank you. Could a microbrewery be a standalone manufacturing location or have as an adjunct a tasting room and retail sales space, including sit-down of customers to consume the product?
Yes, it can contain all of that.
And a guitar player, what have you?
Yes, yes, it could.
So they're really two words meant to mean the same thing, microbrewery and then tasting room and...
No, craft beverage.
I meant to say, yes.
That's correct.
Right, okay.
The one and the same.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, no big deal.
Any other questions? And is there a motion to approve chapter, or Article 53?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion?
Did Karen second?
I seconded
Second.
Joni.
Kevin was it Kevin?
Yeah.
All in favor? 7-0, okay. Article 54. This was the change in the intensity regulations. And again, there was a note on that, with that footnote, yes. So that's actually a typo in the current
It
bylaw.
is, yes, it is. There should be footnote 7 above 35 feet in the height section.
See if I don't know if I can bring
table.
that up on this little thing here.
So I'll make a motion to approve Article 54 as written.
Okay. Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Discussion? All in favor? 7-0. We did electronic voting.
Kathy,
Yes.
while we're tallying votes, are you, in this last instance, showing 7-0 or 7-0-0?
We usually do it that way, yeah.
Okay, good, because in the town meeting, none of the voters will know how many people were at which
Right,
meeting
right.
when this was voted.
No, we usually put 7-0-0.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
Is it not on your screens?
Yeah, it is. It's
it is, and you have the 0-0s. Yes.
Thank you.
I think we are done, yes, we are done.
So can I also, on Article 57, do you have a breakdown of the, to put in the summary? Do you usually break that out in the summary as to what, how much is being billed, the unpaid bills, you know, like.
What's that, say it again?
We didn't get them.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Unless I missed them.
So in Article 57,
Yeah,
it's for unpaid bills,
yeah,
whatever the money is, 30, whatever it is.
3,600, yeah.
Do we have a breakdown as to what bills are being paid?
It says it in the summary there.
But it doesn't give the amount. Don't we usually do that?
So does this mean my house?
I guess I assumed that was one bill.
Unfortunately.
I don't know. Jeff, do you know? On Article 57?
I do not.
It just says unpaid bill.
Bills.
Well, we usually do, but if there's only one bill,
Is it one bill?
I can find out.
we can check
I thought it
that.
was two, sorry. Oh, it's
There,
just
it
one.
says bills.
Huh? It says bill here in the summary.
But it says bills.
Oh, up there.
Yeah, it says bills. I'm sorry, I assumed it was two.
Well, if you could find that out, and then let us know, because we will put that in the summary
Remember when we
box.
went to
Okay.
Austin, I mean, the areas
This is
outside, there's just
27th,
no
right?
water anymore.
6 o'clock, 6:30?
We'll probably meet at 6:30
When? Oh, that night?
on that night, yes.
Where does
Do
West
you want
Texas
to,
begin? Abilene, okay.
what is the word?
Confer?
Confer over the summary boxes? I can write down a
Yeah.
couple.
Yeah, we could do that
We don't
next
have
week.
to get together, we can just call it
Yeah,
out.
because they're going to post
Whatever's needed.
on Monday, right?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow.
They can post it
But
without
we
any
post without the
explanation.
summary box.
Yeah, actually, the posting is done.
Ah.
Just,
Well, you just changed wording,
Just
so it
changed
can't-
words here,
you
though.
can't.
I know, I'll fix it again tomorrow.
I mean, they're
Tonight.
still within the time frame of being able to do
Yeah,
that.
no.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
when do we have to provide the summary boxes then?
Well,
Wait, you could, that's where you town clerk and ask her when she needs the copies, so she can make our, 300 copies of it.
I'll ask Lynn.
Oh,
It's
you'll
usually like just a few days before on a special.
It all depends, yeah. Because you gotta, correlate them and staple them.
Well, yeah. I'll check with her. Okay, let's see, we have no reserve fund transfers, we did all the meeting minutes, by the way, Joan.
Oh, good, yeah, so, thank you for those, Joanne. I'm sorry, but I'm so tired these days. And
You
I'm
have
like,
babies.
I do, I have a lot of babies.
Any new business? Old business? Our public just left. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Just, I guess, one thing, we're gonna have, are we
Yes.
or are we not gonna have a meeting before?
We'll schedule one if,
Oh, okay.
just in case, probably at 6:30.
If Jeff has the numbers beforehand, could I
27th?
advocate for maybe the week
I wrote
before
it.
instead of the night of, because it's such a zoo, the night of?
Yes, we could, if
You
he
can
has.
advocate, but I don't know how many people are going to jump on board to cover just that when we can.
It's not that much of a zoo.
It depends when the week before we get MMA that week, so some of us will be out of the office starting Wednesday evening.
Yeah, come on.
We always
It's
vote these
winter.
last-minute things right before the meeting. It's fun.
one-
Kevin, have a little bit of spontaneity and excitement in
It's
this.
one article. It's not as if there's a bunch. Come on, we're gonna have a million meetings.
Can't just.
Yeah, I know, we're
can't
headed
sign-
into that.
We're heading into the season, and we need to pace ourselves here.
Okay.
All right, so
Motion
it
to
was
adjourn.
adjourned. Thank you, Ken. Second, all in favor, 8:24-ish. Whatever it is. I have it on my phone.